The Supreme Court of New South Wales has ruled that laws introduced by that state to stop people protesting near churches, synagogues, mosques, and other places of worship go too far. Judge Anna Mitchell-Moore ruled that the law puts too much restriction on Australians' constitutional freedom of communication, and therefore they are invalid. The challenge to the laws was brought by the left-wing Palestine Action Group, or PAG. That's the people who organise most of the Sydney protests. And while I don't support much of what this group says, or any of it, I do support their right to say it. And the principle of law at play here is a freedom of speech thing. So it affects all of us, no matter what our politics. So this ruling is the right one, I reckon. You may recall the Palestine Action Group had a big loss in the New South Wales Court of Appeal last week when its planned Opera House protest was stopped by the New South Wales government. And I think that was right too. If a government has genuine security concerns about a protest, or if a national icon is being used deliberately to send a message for propaganda purposes, then that may be fair enough reason to stop it going ahead in a particular area and forcing it to move. But it has to be a decision made on that basis. And just saying, look, you can't protest anywhere near a place of worship just because doesn't cut it. Labor governments don't like free speech. They used to. The left used to be the champions of civil liberties and free speech when I was a youngster. That was a long time ago, I admit. And the left in most places in the world are notorious for clamping down on free expression. They have to be. Shining the light of free speech on ideas is how you know a dumb ideology that doesn't work is actually a dumb ideology that doesn't work. So socialists and communists can't have that because their ideology is dumb and it doesn't work. It was Voltaire, the French philosopher and writer of the Enlightenment period in the mid-1700s, who famously said roughly that I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. That famous quote is actually a paraphrase of what he said, but it captures his point perfectly. And in that vein, I am absolutely appalled by the decision of Albo's immigration minister, Tony Burke, to persist with the denial of a visa application from podcaster and US conservative commentator Candace Owens to tour Australia. The minister's ruling on banning Candace Owens was challenged in court by her, and this week, Candace lost that challenge.
To news just in, and far-right commentator Candace Owens has lost an appeal against a decision to ban her from entering Australia. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke rejected her application for a visa last year ahead of a national speaking tour in November. The High Court today tossed out her challenge after she claimed the ban went against the principles of free speech.
Far right. Everyone is far right these days, according to the mainstream media. So the court ruled that the minister's ban on Candace coming in is lawful. That's all the court's allowed to rule on, and it's no doubt correct technically. But the minister's ban is certainly not in the interests of our country, nor in the principle of the freedom of speech. Like a lot of people, I used to like Candace Owens' commentary a lot. And like a lot of people, I now think she's gone a little bit off the rails of late, delving into kooky conspiracy theories and stuff. But that's not the issue here. Tony Burke has disallowed too many people visas lately, and he's reflecting an attitude and an approach that is censorial, it is patronising, and it is condescending to the Australian people. It's so paternalistic and nanny state that I'm now going to refer to Tony Burke from now on as Daddy Tony. Daddy Tony keeping us all safe from people with opinions and hurty words that he doesn't like. Kanye West, or Ye or Ye or whatever he likes to be called now, had his visa cancelled because of concerns over anti-Semitism. And the former Israeli minister, Ayelet Shahid, was banned this year on character grounds because it was judged that she could, quote, vilify Australians or incite discord in the community. Yeah, she looks terrifying. Folks, this stuff has got to stop. Australia is supposed to be a free country, and this is just getting embarrassing. When Candace's visa was originally rejected last year, we interviewed her on this show, and we asked her if this sort of thing could happen in America.
We believe in free speech, and for a politician to make a statement saying that they're just or whatever it was. Maybe Tony Burke's quote got butchered in the media. I've been lied about, so I don't want to say he definitively said it this way, but for him to say that he was going to personally look through the visa and put a stop to it on the basis of something that I never said, no politician would proudly say that in America. That would be instantly, people would go, you're an authoritarian. And so when we hear that, we do wonder, like, is that a free country? Like, because I could go to the Middle East and not say that. I could go to Dubai and not hear that, that we're going to review this on the basis of something that she said. And so you go, how could this happen in Australia? Like, I've never been there, but I always assumed the Aussies were like the Americans, like, like that's our brethren. And surely they're going to be equally as mortified that they would have a politician say that. And so we just wonder what's going on, especially after we were following all of the stories of what happened in Australia during COVID. We were just wondering, like, has Australia been taken over by communism? Like, do we need to go rescue Australians? I said that once tongue in cheek. If we're going to talk about spreading democracy, maybe we should go help our friends over in Australia first.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they've got it.
Hopefully we'll work it out.
Candace Owens on the other side last year when her ban first happened. So who has Daddy Tony let into the country? Well, the ISIS brides, of course, something the coalition government was also guilty of.
We have a number of Australian citizens who made a terrible decision, an absolutely dreadful decision, to go off and join join others who were involved in what has been described as one of the most horrific organisations that the world has seen. And this is not the first time that Australian citizens who made that decision have returned. When Australian citizens seek to return to Australia, they are able to do so.
Daddy Tony Burke there, the immigration minister, taking care of us all and explaining why people who marry and hang out with the world's worst terror organisation can come into the country, but an American podcaster can't. Now, the ISIS brides are Aussie citizens, and thanks to the quick action of the immigration people in Beirut, their kids are now too, by descent, citizenship by descent for the children. So Daddy Tony actually cannot deny them entry. Or can he? Under normal circumstances, the Australian government cannot lawfully stop Australian citizens from returning to their own country, and that's a good thing. But there are some narrow exceptions and temporary emergency powers that have been used in extreme situations and in not so extreme situations, like in 2021, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Australian government temporarily barred citizens in India from returning using Biosecurity Act emergency powers. That was disgusting, and we should never forget or forgive ScoMo and the Liberals for that. I don't care if you have to build a quarantine centre in the middle of northwestern Australia. Aussie citizens who are not criminals playing with terrorists must always be able to return home, especially if they need medical care or face medical risk abroad. Essentially, we abandoned those Australians and let them rot and potentially die in a place where we knew COVID was pretty rampant and dangerous and where the healthcare system wasn't so great. That was unforgivable. And it was a Liberal Party government that did it. So it's not a political thing. Both sides are equally bad on this. The government can also cancel or refuse to issue an Australian passport to an Australian citizen for national security or criminal reasons. Now, it doesn't cancel someone's citizenship, and a citizen without a valid passport must still be allowed entry, but they might need to travel on emergency documents or be processed more slowly. Where it gets really interesting is with citizens suspected of terrorism. Under the Criminal Code, the Minister for Home Affairs can issue what's called a temporary exclusion order to delay an Australian citizen's return from overseas if the person has been involved in terrorist activities or organisations, and the minister reasonably believes the order is necessary to protect the public. This order can be issued for up to 2 years, and it's renewable. And Section 35 of the Citizenship Act allows revocation of citizenship for dual nationals involved in terrorism offences. So you could do that if they have dual nationality. So it seems that Daddy Tony is happy to use his special powers that are only supposed to be used in very extreme cases, quite often when he's blocking conservative speakers or thinkers coming into Australia. But he isn't prepared to use his special powers when it comes to terrorists' brides. What a marvellous government we've got, folks. And the main alternative isn't much better, since they don't seem to be bothered by any of this and haven't said a peep about it. Meanwhile, Daddy Tony Burke did a press club lunch on Thursday afternoon and revealed that up to 700 more Gazans could come to Australia as refugees, despite the ceasefire. So let's put this into perspective. Jordan and Egypt, the countries that actually neighbour Gaza, have taken, zero refugees during the 2-year war. Wow. Okay, so much for the Arab world caring so much about the Palestinians. I suppose all the other big Western countries are taking in lots too. Let's just check on that. Okay, Britain has issued 168 visas. Germany, 147 visas. France, 260 visas. And the United States, 17. But Australia, up to 700 on our caseload that we'll be taking in, says Daddy Tony Burke. Our fellow Australians voted for this government in May. Incredible. One of the world's biggest banks, the American giant JP Chase, has reportedly declared that it's going to help American businesses to invest up to $1.5 trillion trillion, that's a million, in the next 10 years to reduce America's reliance on China. CEO Jamie Dimon says the US has become too reliant on unfriendly nations for critical supplies of all sorts of goods. It's all part of the bank's security and resiliency initiative, which it unveiled this week. Apart from facilitating and financing that $1.5 trillion of client investment in reducing dependency on China, JP Morgan will invest up to $10 billion itself of its own money. That's equivalent to about 15 billion Australian dollars directly into 4 key areas: supply chain and advanced manufacturing, defense and aerospace, energy independence and resilience, and what they call frontier and strategic technologies. In an opinion editorial in the Wall Street Journal newspaper this week, Jamie Dimon said, "The US has allowed itself to become too reliant on unreliable sources of critical minerals, products, and manufacturing, all of which are essential for our national security. Our adversaries and potential adversaries aren't waiting. We no longer have the luxury of time. We need to act now." Surely there would be some opportunities for Australian businesses to be supplying the US in this pivot away from China, and we could see a little bit of that. At the same time, we've got news now that the Trump administration wants all US allies, including Australia, to decouple from China and get behind the US if China makes good on its threat to control the export of vital rare earth minerals from its country. The US is worried that China wants to totally control global supply chains. China has got 1/3 of the world's rare earth mineral deposits, 44 million metric tons. Vietnam, Brazil, and Russia have about 21 million each. Then it's a long way back to 5th place for India on just 7 million tons. Australia comes in 8th at 4.2 million. So this news of a battle between China and the US over rare earths massively affects Australia because the US only has about 3 billion. It represents an opportunity for us because we've got big deposits of these rare earths, and more than even the countries that have got bigger deposits, we're one of the biggest early suppliers. So if China starts using its own rare earths as political bargaining chips and blocks US supply, that market opens up to Australia. But this whole thing presents risks to us as well as opportunity, because any action that we take could affect our relationship with China as our main trading partner. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says China has proven itself to be an unreliable partner to the world and warned Beijing risks international isolation if it tries to implement its planned export controls in December. He says they don't want an economic decoupling from China in America, but he says there'd be no other choice for America if China persists in going down this path. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is off to the White House this coming week for his meeting with President Trump, finally. Keep an eye out for that one. It's going to be very entertaining, past the popcorn. And there's the APEC Leaders Summit in South Korea at the end of the month. APEC includes the United States and China as well as Australia. President Trump and President Xi Jinping are expected to have their first face-to-face in-person meeting in 6 years at the APEC summit. Well, the March for Australia is happening this Sunday, October 19. You can Google the location in your city. This is a series of rallies around the country to remind the government of a few things, mainly to put Australia first in policy making, to reduce the size and scale of immigration until we get the housing crisis and cost of living under control, and then keep it at a sensible level that'll ensure our cultural core is retained as a nation. There's been a lot of controversy online about the marches being infiltrated by neo-Nazis. Who cares and who knows? Any march that anyone has for any issue these days is going to be infiltrated by the radical right neo-Nazis, the radical left Antifa, and the radicals pretending to be from the side that they're not from and just trying to stir up trouble, so that's all the media focuses on. So my advice would be, with precaution, make your own mind up, go along anyway, march anyway. Last time, at least I know, in certain cities, Brisbane, Canberra, Perth, Adelaide, it was peaceful, it was happy occasion. There was a little bit of conflict in Sydney and Melbourne, but nothing too dramatic. But the point is, we do need to have some kind of rally for normal, centrist, everyday Aussies, because our government is out of touch, and we do need generally to remind politicians and bureaucrats that Australians are not all left-wing, that we do not all think the government should step in and fix everything and keep taxing us and making itself bigger. If these marches are big enough, it will be a get back in your box, send a message moment, letting the pollies and bureaucrats know that the quiet Australians are still here. We are still watching them, and we still vote, in case all the left-wing marches have made them forget that. So I think it's time for the centrists and the centre-right to get out on Sunday, and the right, the Conservatives, everybody, to get out and have your say. So forget about the radicals that might show up. They're in minority anyway. Speaking of overtaxing us all, by the way, the changes to superannuation by Treasurer Jim Chalmers do not go far enough. He has decided that he will still double the tax on earnings on super balances over $3 million. That's going to go to 30%. And he's going even further now with a whopping 40% tax on balances over 10 million. Or is it? No, 10 million, yeah. All he said is that he won't do now is a couple of things that would have been ridiculous to do anyway. Taxing capital gains before an asset has even been sold, okay? The unrealised gains, the taxing of unrealised gains, a really dangerous and stupid idea, because apart from being fundamentally immoral and rejected by every government in the world, it would have been completely unworkable. You couldn't calculate it. And the other thing that he's changed and backed away from is that those new thresholds will be indexed to inflation. That means that young people won't find in 20, 30 years' time that they've got $3 million in super and suddenly have to pay that higher tax rate. So it's just a tax on the rich bastards. And, you know, we love that in socialist Australia, don't we? No need to honour previous commitments about super tax rates. Perfectly fine to change the rules as we go along. This builds trust in future government schemes and positive trust in government overall, doesn't it? It's also great for our society and investment inflows. Wealth creators will be very attracted to this socialist mindset we have here, and to Australia generally. They'll work hard for years. Small business people, yeah, get out there, create and build wealth, just to give it all away to the state to waste on politicians and bureaucrats' untested pet projects. Because smart people who actually work hard and create wealth and jobs for other people are always happy to hand their money over under threat of imprisonment to people like Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese to manage. I'm sorry, but this is going to affect poor and middle-class Aussies because of the effect it has. Like all socialist policies that sound nice, they end up hurting the people they're supposed to help. It is simply not fair to change the rules on anything late in the game. It's not fair to overtax your citizens and indulge in obscene waste and grift. Aussies are overtaxed to death, and people aren't going to cop it much longer. Look at the national debt. Look at the fact people in small businesses, look at the number of small businesses that are closing and that can't afford to hire people and they can't afford to create jobs. Look at the fact that the housing industry is being plundered by government taxation, causing a massive supply shortage. All of this stuff adds up and it hurts all of us. SmartKits Australia is a leading supplier of prefabricated home improvement kits, so you can do it yourself, save money and hassle. SmartKits Australia is the easiest way to improve your home and build memories that last forever. Buy online, customize your way, get it built. That's the SmartKits way. Decks, patios, pergolas, flyover roofs, carports, and insulated roofing, all prefabricated, fully engineered, and delivered anywhere in Australia. You can choose from hundreds of pre-designed SmartKits on their website, or you can go custom with SmartKits' in-house design team. Every kit is engineered tough, packed smart, and delivered free anywhere in Australia. And don't worry if you're not so handy. If you need it installed, they can do that too. Their licensed builder network can get you started even faster. It's up to you. So save thousands on your own 100% Australian-made smart kit. Build your own outdoor lifestyles with SmartKits Australia. SmartKits.com.au, a proud sponsor of The Other Side. That was a segment clip from our weekly Friday night news show, The Other Side, which you can watch in full by simply going to YouTube and searching up The Other Side Australia. Then you'll find our full shows playlist. You can also find all of our full shows and our segments on our own website, othersidetv.com.au. That's othersidetv.com.au. Help us build a whole new Aussie media by joining us over there and signing up for the exclusive side.